A lot of times we underestimate what passion can actually do to a person, you know. My love for film has always been very strong. My love for culture, my love for cinema, my love for music and arts has always been very strong. I loved, you know, being in the drama club. I loved being in the debate rooms. I loved sports. But I'll never forget one thing that kind of changed my life. And that was around 1994. Um, my dad, that year I think I was in primary six. And then I remember my dad had set a goal that by the end of that year, I should be the first in the class. I should lead the class. So I started off from being the fifth, and that didn't amuse my father. So he was like, no, you're playing too much, you're doing a lot of business, you're not concentrating. If you don't make it to the first this year, I'm going to punish you. And this is something I see a lot today, how much pressure we exert on our children simply because we want or we have an image of success in our eyes, you know. We don't listen to what our children really desire or want to be. Of course, it's good to be as a parent, it's good to guide your kids, it's good to have to give them a sense of direction. So that year, first time I was the fifth, then the report card system then I think in police children's school was actually very unfair. It was not secret, it was not confidential. So they printed out an A4 sheet with all the kids in the class. So you could see who performed how, you know? And you could actually know, okay, this guy is ahead of me, so I'm going to have to work hard and beat him. So it created some kind of, like yardstick to know where you were in terms of performance and where you had performed badly and how you could improve. But of course, you could also see who was not doing well. So as children, yeah, you tend to, of course, look down on those ones who are not doing well. Right? Wrong? I think, yes, it is wrong. We should be all given an opportunity because we all have different abilities and we score differently in life. So that same period, the second year, that second term that came, I was the third. And that for me was an achievement because I'd come from the fifth to the third. So I knew I'm doing well, you know. And then comes the last term. I was the second. And there was one of my friends, Paul Luguza, was the first. We were going for our final year to P7. So he was the first and I was the second. For me, that was progress. So from the fifth to the third to the second, I saw growth. That's what registered in my mind. But to my dad, that was not good enough. So for my own celebration, because I knew I had done something remarkable, I had improved, I had, come from the fifth to the second. So I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to celebrate this achievement because it was a competitive class. Everybody in that class was good. So if you could make that progress gradually, it meant you were actually doing well. So I returned home, threw my report card, put everything on the floor, and then ran off to Zambia Central. We used to call it in Zambia the market. So Zambia Central. I ran off. And I went looking at different video halls, which movie was showing that afternoon. I first started with, there was a video club called Ibaka Video Club. Nah, there was nothing. I went to the second one, in the middle, nothing. I went to the last one, there's a guy called Taina. He used to operate a video hall there. And over the weekends, we used to go clean up the hall so that we could be able to get access to watch movies. But remember, when you watched movies in Zambia Central then, people really looked at you like you were a spoiled child. Of course, That's where we all started getting this, those guys who are interested in music. Over the weekend, you could go and watch, music videos. You could go and watch karate, war movies. So in the end, many people picked interest from different forms of entertainment. Some of them became great musicians. Some of them became great sportsmen. Some of them became, everything. We all went there. Any child who grew up in Zambia went to that street. We all went to those video halls. So because there was nothing interesting for me that day on all the video halls, I decided to go back to the first hall, Ibaka, and got in. And I think the movie that was playing at that time was, there was this movie by Billy Blanks. I don't remember the movie, but it was a Billy Blanks movie. So yeah, I was watching the movie. It was a very dark hall. And there I was glued on the screen watching, And then I hear suddenly somebody call my name. Simba! And as a child, of course, it's a natural reaction. That's how my dad called me. Simba! And I responded, Abe! And that was it. I had already blown up my cover. So my dad came in. I think he roughed up the guy who was collecting money at the gate. He really beat him up. He really pushed him away. And the guy stood away, he came in, he pulled me up, really manhandled me. He had had some drinks. So of course, then I was a teenager. I was really starting to be, come from being just a boy, becoming an adolescent. So my dad dragged me along from the video hall, slapping me, kicking me, beating me, and then dragged me into the barracks. But remember, all this is happening like in the transition. So you have all your friends you've been to school all your friends you've been to school with, looking at you, being harassed, embarrassed by your father. And I know my young brother was with my dad because it's my young brother who knew, my young brother Mark Mandela, who knew which video hall I went to. So he had told my dad that I usually go to the last video hall. But my dad being an adult, being in the being an officer, he said, no, if we're going to make a search, we're going to have to start with the first hall. So my dad was right. So they started with the first hall, and that's where they got me. So my dad took me back home, but it was a stretch. By the time we got home, he made a stopover. In the barracks, there used to be women or families that sold alcohol, local brew. So those most officers converged in those small houses, had a glass of waraji. It was common, It was common that there was always an alcohol joint somewhere in the neighborhood. So my dad stopped at that guy, one of the homes. The gentleman is called Kajura, It's called Kajura. That's where that was his home, and he used to sell. I think his wife was selling waraji, that local brew. So my dad went there to refill. And after refilling, he had still held me by his hand like this, and I was standing there crying, And every time he narrated the whole story of how, I was getting spoiled and how I was going off track. And after I had emptied his glass, he dragged me down the road. It was not far from our house. We got home, and my dad gave me a beating of my life, man. He gave me a beating of my life that I actually wanted to take my own life. It hurt me so bad that I had worked so hard throughout the entire year. I'd done my best, and I was very proud because I knew I was bringing back a very good report card home. But then here I was coming back home and being punished for what? I don't know. Was it wrong for me to go and celebrate Was it wrong for me to go and watch a movie? It's something I really didn't understand, you know. So that day, my mom came back home. I was hurt. I was bleeding. And I wanted to commit suicide. There used to be a cesspool tank, next to our house. And in the barracks, it was normal to have them overfilled because, yeah, you had a very big population of people. So people just dumped anything and everything in the sewers. So they got blocked, and often sewage ran over the tanks. And that day I contemplated on opening the sewage, tank, and just let myself fall in there, and that would be the end of me. My mom came back that day, and it was a big fight. It was a very big fight. And that was the last time I saw my father. My mother and father separated on that day. And the next time I saw my dad, he was lying in a casket 6 years later. May his soul rest in peace.